Good morning, everybody. We're live here from the birdhouse where it is starting to at least look a little bit like spring outside. The sun is bright and shining, and it's starting to melt away some of the snow. It'll be above freezing today, so we're hoping to get rid of some of these massive piles of snow. But the birds are starting to sing and they're starting to check out nesting boxes. So the first signs of spring are here. And today we've got an update of some of the different birds people are seeing, some of the things you can expect to maybe see in your yard, and some of our first migrants coming into the area, which is really exciting. As always, we love to know what kind of things you're seeing or hearing in your yard. If you've got any kind of sightings, you can put those in the comments, or you can just say hi. So we will get started here. First, I should mention we do have lots of events coming up. We're starting to add them to our website and Facebook pages, including the birding cruises. They're not, we don't have any that are totally sold out yet, but a couple are getting kind of close. So especially in May. So if you are interested in signing up on a birding cruise, I would highly suggest you do it sooner rather than later. We're doing 5 cruises on the Rivery, and here's a picture of one of the groups last year on the Rivery. And we're also having a cruise on the Colonial Belle, one on the Colonial Belle, so it'll go through locks. It's a 3-hour cruise as opposed to an hour and 15 minutes. So we do have a couple of different cruising options going on. That being said, we also have other events going on here at the store and elsewhere. We're going to be doing talks on bluebirds here in the store and out at Whitehaven Park, and we'll be doing a live stream on bluebirds too. Of course, we have birds of prey coming here. We have birds of prey classes that are going to be here. So there's lots going on. So keep an eye out on our website. We've got some of those events that are just starting to be listed now. So lots of fun stuff coming up here in the future. But it's March already. So as I said before, it is getting light out longer. The sun just feels stronger. The snow is melting. I'm sure once the snow is melted away, we'll start seeing things like the crocus and the snowdrops popping up. So it's a really exciting time of the year. And you might be seeing and hearing some of your first signs of spring. I know this morning I woke up to a cardinal just singing its heart out. We're hearing reports of Carolina wren, very singy in the mornings, and even reports of bluebirds checking out birdhouses. So you might start to see that behavior where the birds are checking out the birdhouses. Still a little early for them to start the nesting process, but they're definitely looking for places. So if you haven't cleaned out your birdhouses yet, now is the time to do that. But some birds that you might start to see in your yard, which you might not have gotten during the winter months, are going to start to appear. Things like red-winged blackbird, both the male and the female. Usually we hear reports of the males coming through first. So this is what the male looks like here. Dark black with that bright red patch, or sometimes it's mostly yellow depending on what view you're getting. But the red-winged blackbirds will start coming in some nice big flocks, especially if you're by any kind of water or marsh or pond with cattails. You'll start to hear those red-winged blackbirds and see them coming in some good numbers. And then here's what the female looks like. So the female does look quite a bit different than the male. So blackbirds, for the most part, are migratory. We do have some that stick around all winter. So there are some red-winged blackbirds that you can see here and there throughout the winter months. Same with grackles, but for the most part, they do go a little further south for the winter, and then they come back in early spring. They don't do a huge long migration, at least the red-winged blackbirds and the common grackles. They don't do a really long migration like the orioles do. So they have less miles to travel when they're coming back up into this area. So we're getting reports of both the red-winged blackbirds and some grackles coming back to feeders. Same as brown-headed cowbirds. You might see a mixed flock of some of these blackbirds all together, including the brown-headed cowbird. If they are coming to your feeders and eating lots of your seed, one thing you can do is switch to the safflower seed. The blackbirds don't like the safflower so much, and so you can attract birds like finches and cardinals, but keep some of these blackbirds at bay. Also, in some of those flocks of blackbirds, you might come across what's called the rusty blackbird. So, different looking blackbird with that brightly colored eye. They're not as common as the red-winged blackbirds and grackles, of course, but they do form mixed flocks with some of these birds. And sometimes you can come across one or two in a flock of the other blackbirds. So, this could be what your feeders will look like soon, with grackles and red-winged blackbirds coming through, which is a sign of spring. Some other birds in that blackbird family, which are migratory, are going to be things like eastern meadowlark. Eastern meadowlark is a species that is in very big decline, and they're a grassland species, so they're not going to be your typical backyard bird, but they do come back in March. So keep an eye and ear out for eastern meadowlark singing in wide open fields. And then some other birds in the blackbird family, which we will start to see later on in the spring, are going to be things like bobolink, which is another grassland species. They start coming back in May. And the Baltimore oriole, everybody loves the Baltimore oriole, and of course the orchard oriole, which isn't as common in backyards, but people do get them here and there. They'll be back very, very late April, early May. So there's still time to prepare for your orioles, but it's not a bad idea if you're pulling things out for spring, making sure you've got all your pieces and parts of your oriole feeders, that you've got all of your accessories like your weather guards and any kind of cups that the jelly goes in for the feeders. So it'll be here before we know it, the big migration season. So we're very excited about that here, of course. And then you never know what will show up, especially during migration season when birds are hungry. This is from last year. This is a picture of a pine warbler that Mark was getting at his finch feeder for a while. So we will start to see warblers coming in. Pine warbler is an early migrant, the same as the yellow-rumped warbler. They come in earlier in the season. And you never know. They're rare to have at feeders, but it does happen every once in a while. So make sure to keep an eye out at your feeders for some of these rare birds that might pop up. And if you've got your Niger feeders out, you'll notice that the goldfinches still aren't gold yet, but they will molt their feathers soon and become that bright, bright gold. But be on the lookout for pine siskin. So here's a picture of goldfinch with a pine siskin in the mix here. The pine siskin is in the top left. You can see the pine siskin has more striping than the goldfinch do, and it's not as yellow, although the pine siskin does have some yellow on its wings. So you can see both of those at Niger feeders this time of the year. And speaking of finches, we've talked about eruptive birds and eruptive finches. Pine grosbeak, there has still been a pine grosbeak seen locally at Webster Park in the campground area as recently as 2 days ago. So if you're looking for some of these eruptive birds that seasonally will come south here for the winter, there is still some pine grosbeak activity over the season. We've heard of pine grosbeak and evening grosbeak both being seen, with a little bit of redpoll activity here and there too. But there's still some opportunity to see these birds before they go up north for the spring. And the woodpeckers, of course, are year-round residents, but they are definitely coming to feeders, things like pileated woodpeckers, which love those paddle-tail suet feeders that have the projection on the bottom that gives them some support for their long tails. And northern flicker, you might see that you get northern flicker more often in the winter when their food is scarce. They come to suet feeders definitely more often in the winter months. And then also there's yellow-bellied sapsucker, which isn't a common bird at suet feeders at all, although you might see them investigating your feeders. You're most likely to see them on the side of a tree. So yellow-bellied sapsuckers, they look quite a bit different than the downy woodpecker or the hairy woodpecker. They're kind of in between as far as size goes, but they do have a lot of yellow mottling on them. The males will have more red on them, just like the other woodpecker species we have. The yellow-bellied sapsucker is a migratory bird, although there have been some seen all winter long. I happened upon one maybe about a month ago myself in the winter. So You might just come upon them in your backyard, just not at your feeders so much. Just keep an eye on your trees for them. And if you're by any kind of open water, you'll see there's lots of ducks out there. Now is a fabulous time to look for different duck species, things like mergansers, canvasbacks, American widgeon are coming back, hooded mergansers, and of course, bald eagles. If you're by any kind of open water, there's lots of bald eagles around by Lake Ontario and around Decoit Bay. And these are some photos sent in the past. From some eagles at Decoit Bay. So there's the adults that have the bright white head and bright white tail, and then the juveniles are usually kind of in between. They're a motley mix of browns and whites and cream colors until they reach that adult plumage. So definitely lots of eagle activity around. If you go out by the bay, it's a fabulous place to go locally to look for the eagles, and you can see some of these really interesting behaviors. So thank you guys for watching. Looks like Peggy is on with a comment. She says, I heard and saw red-winged blackbirds on the Brickyard Trail in Brighton this morning. Makes me feel like spring. That's great news. I love to hear that. Yep. Last week, we started hearing reports of grackles coming back to yards. And so it can be a little frustrating if they are going through a lot of your birdseed, but remember, it's a sign of spring. So this is a really exciting time of year. We'll be doing lots of classes, like I mentioned, on nesting birds, bluebirds. We'll be talking more about mason bees. We have those mason bee cocoons now here in store, and we'll be talking more about them as the season goes on as well. And of course, orioles and hummingbirds and butterfly gardening. So keep an eye out on our event list for things that might interest you. We've got things online and in store. And so we've got lots of stuff planned for you this year. Steel Monkey's on. Nice to see you well again. Just wanted to say that Cardinals are red, Jays are blue. When Liz is away, every broadcast doesn't do. Oh, that's so nice of you. Yeah, I got hit by some kind of a cold that's been going around. It's been a long winter. So thankfully, I am better and I'm here broadcasting to you guys. And we'll be back on Saturday with another broadcast. And until then, you guys have a wonderful week. We are getting all ready here in the store for spring. We've got lots of new merchandise coming in. And if you're interested, we started doing live selling events Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 on Facebook Live. So we're just starting to kind of play around with that a little bit. So you can always join in the fun if you want more birdhouse content. Log in here on Facebook on Wednesday nights from 7 till 8 for some of our live selling events. So we just started those last month, and those have been going pretty well. So until Saturday, you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.